Yo, what is up guys, this is Twister and today I'm back with another GTA Online video, and in this one I'm going to be going through the top 5 best supercars to use for stunt races. Now the reason I'm making this video is when I last did a video a few months ago talking about the best cars in each class to use for stunt races, and in that video I said that the RE7B is pretty much the best supercar to use in every single stunt race because back then it was so OP. Literally the most OP thing in the game, but since then it has had the spoiler bug removed, so it's nowhere near as quick as it used to be. Basically a shadow of its former self, and the supercars class in general is a lot more balanced than what it was when the RE7B was completely overpowered, and there's a lot more options to use in the stunt races, especially with some new cars as well. So I wanted to go through what I think based off my experiences and my, well, I'd say my informed opinion, because I have done quite a few stunt races in my time. It's not proper vehicle lap time testing for stunt races. I was thinking that I could do lap times for this, but I thought, you know, there's so many random variables going into stunt races, there's so many different types of stunt races. I thought I would just make this as a rough guide, not a complete definitive list, but like I said, based off of my opinions and experiences from stunt races, in order to show you guys what I think are the best supercars to use for stunt races, and sort of like in what situations they all work best, because they do all have the differences, they are all pretty unique, and since it's no longer a world where the RE7B defeats literally everything, I thought this would be a good time to make this video. So, since we were just talking about the RE7B, in 5th place I do have the RE7B. Like I said, a shadow of its former self. It was pretty much nerfed into the ground of what it used to be. It used to have a massive top speed, it used to have so much traction and the downforce and everything when you had the carbon spoiler on it, but that all got removed. It's no longer super quick. It still has quite a bit of traction from the downforce that it gets. So on some of the stunt races that are quite traction oriented and traction dependent, especially on Vespucci, this is like the closest stunt race that you'll get to basically a normal race. It's got a lot of high speed turns where you're going to make a lot of use out of that traction, so it can be pretty good in those types of situations, but for a majority of stunt races you need a high top speed, and the RE7B just completely lacks high speed, and especially in tubes it does not get that much speed through the tubes. It's rear wheel drive, doesn't have the top speed. It's honestly just not what it used to be, but it is still usable, and that's why it is in 5th. Now next up we've got the T20, and I have placed this in 4th. Even though it is probably one of, well, it probably is my favourite supercar still in the game, it's not quite as quick. It's, you know, similar to the RE7B, it just basically just lacks the top speed that you need. When the RE7B did get nerfed and it was no longer really that competitive in stunt races, the T20 was my go-to supercar. It just does the job. It's got enough speed, it's got enough traction, obviously the active spoiler really does help with that. It's all-wheel drive. It's probably the first car I noticed that got some mad speed when going through the tubes. It's probably one of the best cars for especially custom stunt race with a lot of tubes. It gains so much speed through the tubes. As you know, just driving up the side of the tubes, back down again, you get, you know, crazy speed boost. So the T20 is still really good. Like I said, it was my go-to supercar, probably one of the best after the RE7B got nerfed, which might give you some clues as to some of the cars that are up next. But like I said, overall it's a solid car. It's got the grip, it does have decent acceleration obviously with the all-wheel drive, but it just does lack that top speed, which in a lot of the stunt races, especially the Rockstar ones, you do need the top speed. Now in 3rd, I've gone for the Tempest, and now in my head when I was thinking up these 5 cars before actually making this video, I had this down as 4th, but then after using it, after getting the footage for a few of the stunt races, it just becomes clear that how easy this thing is to drive. Although I do think it's probably quite similar in pace to the T20 in stunt races, and although it definitely does lack the top speed, again a bit like the T20, it just became clear that after a few races it's pretty much the easy mode car in the supercars class. It's so easy to drive, and it's quite nice after a few races. It grips so well. Again, it's all-wheel drive, so it does get a lot of speed on the loops, and just for how easy this car is to drive, it is so good. And you'll see on this is on the Rockstar Race downtown loop. It's really good on this track. On the tracks without as many tubes like this one, this race in particular, literally just turn, do a loop, maybe a wall ride, then some more turns, then some loops, another wall ride, and then obviously a lot of straights in between. It does really well on this track. It just has so much grip. You don't have to brake on a lot of the high-speed corners. You can just throttle control your way around the whole turn, and it just sticks. It doesn't have the top speed, but it sticks through the turns. It's fast enough to compete on most tracks, and it is definitely one of the easiest supercars to drive in the game, so that's why it's in number 3. Now next up, I've gone for the X80 at the number 2 spot. Now I actually don't have a custom one of these. It's one of my personal least favourite supercars in the game, but it is undeniably quick, and that's why it is at number 2 spot. That's also why you're seeing the stock version of this car, because I don't have a custom one. It's one of my least favourite ones, but it's very quick. And another reason why I'm showing the stock footage for the stock version of this car is because it's really good in the stunt race where custom vehicles are turned off, and for some reason I always seem to join the stunt race lobbies where there's like a level 12 host who obviously doesn't have a custom car, so he's turning custom vehicles off to try and make it a bit fairer. And in those situations, the stock X80 is a really good choice. And then even when competing with the custom cars, it's still really competitive. It's top tier in my opinion. Undeniably quick. It's got the mad acceleration that this car has because it's super lightweight. Obviously that does affect the handling. In my opinion, it's one of the weirdest cars to handle in the game, but if you can get used to it, if you can master this car's weird handling, it's something that I'm not a fan of, but you will be rewarded for it if you can master it. It's also got a really strong top speed as well, so obviously with a lot of the stunt races being pretty top speed dependent, the X80 is going to do you pretty well, as I mentioned, if you can get used to the handling of this car. And at the same time, it does have enough traction to make sure it's not completely awful as soon as you try and turn the car. So you've got a good mix of all the characteristics you need: all-wheel drive, acceleration, decent enough handling and traction, and of course the top speed is pretty important. So you might be thinking, well, the X80 sounds like the perfect car, so what's going to be number 1? Well, at number 1 I've gone for the Niro, and by extension the Niro Custom, but they're both pretty much the same. I think the Niro Custom is slightly quicker, but it's not too significant. But like I said, number 1, the Niro Custom. Now if you thought the X80 had pretty much all the perfect attributes for a car in stunt races, then the Niro is pretty much that and the rest of it. It's got one of the highest top speed of all the supercars. I think it's the 3rd fastest supercar in terms of top speed, behind the Banshee 900R and the 811, and those two cars themselves are pretty horrible everywhere else apart from top speed, but this car isn't. The Niro Custom, it pretty much does what the Adder could never do and actually be good in races. It's got that really mad top speed that you need in a lot of the stunt races. It's all-wheel drive. It handles surprisingly well for the top speed that it has. Usually, obviously, the cars with the top speeds don't handle too well like the Adder used to do when that had the high top speed of the supercars, and similar to the 811 and the Banshee 900R. This car has the top speed, it has the handling, it has the traction, and it's honestly not too difficult to drive. And it's no surprise that in the race that you're seeing right now, there's 4 Niros in the top 4 spots, and this is just a random race, so obviously it could be any car. It is just a random race, so it doesn't really say everything about car performance, but I just thought it was pretty cool that the top 4 were all Niros and Niro Customs, and it is just, in my opinion, the overall best car to use for stunt racing. I'm not saying it's always the best in every single situation for every single stunt race, because that's not what this video is about. It might seem a bit contradictory that I think this car is overall the best, but not the best in every situation. If you guys can kind of understand what I'm getting at, I hope I'm not completely confusing you. But for most types of stunt races, this is going to be the best choice. Its top speed is brilliant for the top speed dependent stunt races. You can throw that in with the traction dependent stunt races because it does handle well enough. And then in, for example, custom stunt race with a lot of tubes, it gets insane speed through the tubes as well, a bit like the T20. Really fast through there. So in a lot of the situations, it is going to be really competitive, and that's why I think overall, in general, the best supercar to use for stunt race. So that is going to wrap it up for this video. Hopefully you have enjoyed it. Hopefully you found this video pretty helpful. If my top 5 supercars list completely differs to what you guys had in your head, then let me know what you thought in the comments below. What is your favourite, or what do you think is the best supercar to use for stunt races? Let me know in the comments below. But yeah, hopefully you guys have enjoyed this video. If you have enjoyed it, make sure you do leave it a like rating, subscribe to the channel if you are new, and I will hopefully see you all in my next video. See you later, guys.